Raw today. It's Unrehearsed and Raw here on KTLO. There's no telling what's going to happen. We don't even know what's going to happen. This is episode 34. And, ladies and gentlemen, it is 2020 and it's Friday the 13th. There's no way to know what's going on today. So, without further, is it a do, a done, whatever?
Do.
Addo.
Without further ado, okay. That's great, Greg. Thank you for that. This is where you are and what you're looking at. Keeping the learning on, episode 34, Unrehearsed and Raw, and we're keeping true to that already. So we should have some fun today. We're just going to talk. This is what happened before we got a little bit formal and started doing this on Zoom and YouTube. We would just hang out together and talk about stuff, and that's pretty much what today is going to be like. The core crew, Patty Blackstaff, that guy, Greg Sanker, Simone Joe Moore over in France, and yours truly in South Carolina, along with our guests today. We have Dee Burgoyne and Kathy Veldboom with us today. And that's some information about the core crew. If you want to connect with us, we're all on LinkedIn, which is pretty much how we connected with each other in the first place, along with meeting each other at different events, etc. So it is great to be here. And the interviewer du jour will be Patty Blackstaff. She's just going to ask questions and we'll see where this goes.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. These conversations we started having a few years ago actually circled around one person who we all knew collectively, and then eventually he introduced us to each other, and that's Roy. Roy has a unique skill. He is a people connector and definitely likes to, okay, Roy, I'll be careful and I'm not going to tell them all your unique skills, but I think we're going to talk about how conversations really they make the world go round, and especially in these times where we are right now. We have a lot of interesting stuff going on around us with a global pandemic, and a lot of us are isolated in our homes. And me, for one, having really good conversations with people charges me and makes me feel connected. And I think connection is really where we're going. You know, I remember an article I read, and I've looked for it since. I've gone online and I've hunted for it because it was such a good article. It was a reporter was asking JFK Jr. why everybody liked him so much, and his response was really fascinating. It actually changed how we interact with people. He said, "It's because I don't talk about me. It's because I ask questions, because I am keenly interested in other people." And I think that's what gets conversations going, is when you're keenly interested in information about other people, which actually grows some cool stuff in conversations. And so when we talked about, we meet offline and we have a lot of laughs and jabs at each other and tease each other, and sometimes I laugh so hard I'm crying. We didn't start that way, though. We started with industry interest and talking about industry stuff, things that were kind of going on around us. And I think I want to just ask our crew how because of the way it's changed, what does the connection for KTLO mean to you? And I'm going to start with Greg.
I knew you were going to do that.
You always start with me.
I do. Well, as the parent said, don't you start with me. Don't you start with me, young lady. Okay, that's just my way of avoiding getting to the heartfelt. This crew means a lot to me. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. And I'm a person who opens up pretty transparently to people I trust. So be careful if you trust me or if I trust you, because I will be open and honest with you. And partly this has been a kind of a conversation that I would normally have in a coffee shop with a group of people that I could, spend some airspace with, as we like to call it. And so to translate that into an online forum where we're crossing international boundaries, and people that otherwise I would see once every couple of years. Simone, we meet up somewhere in Europe usually, and Patty, we see you in Fort Lauderdale or something. I don't know. But to be able to get together on a regular basis and just have an authentic conversation, I think, I don't know if it's overstating to say it keeps one mentally healthy in a time of pandemic. So I don't know. That's the beginning. Don't make me get all mushy. It's like, I love you guys. I really do.
Well, I like it when you get mushy.
Yeah, I know.
Then
So
you turn all red, and then
I go for humor when I get there. You know that, right?
Simone, how about you? What does the connection of KTLO mean for you?
Wow. Well, interestingly, because as you said before, KTLO wasn't called that beforehand. So that connection started quite a while ago. So for me, from that, I think it's the no holds barred, don't hold back, upfront, be who you are. And as you said, we can have the craziest, we might start off talking about something. Well, okay, so what's the topic this week? Well, okay. And then of course it just dissolves into something completely unexpected. That's another thing I love. Even though we know each other, and and quite well, I might add, and from different environments, I think I love the fact that we still surprise each other, I think, sometimes. And that, I don't know, I can't, so my jaw is going to get sore just from smiling at thinking about it. So even if I can't quite articulate what it means, it feels damn good.
Nice. How about you, Roy?
I have no idea. As you said, kindly, I connect people. I kind of like put them together and say, "Here, you have something in common." And I am. I'm not a person who opens up easily. I was raised in a very Victorian household. It is extremely difficult for me to get personal, so I tend not to. And this group is comfortable enough that we can do that to a large extent. And we made a decision a while back when the pandemic started, really, that we were going to do this in public, have these conversations out in public, because we felt that people needed it, we needed it, and so here we are. And it's good that we have these conversations every week. I think it keeps us connected. I would say keep us sane, but you people know me better than that. So it is
It's
a
our
wonderful,
insanity that you love.
well, like attracts like, I guess.
I believe it was Taylor who said if we weren't all crazy, we all go insane. No, it was Jimmy Buffett. Sorry. Wow.
Who's one of those people.
Yeah, one of those entertaining people.
A person said that. A person once said, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I stumbled through that. I'm going to stammer my way off now.
Okay. So, it's interesting. Because I came to our conversation a little later than you guys had started a conversation first, and then Roy said, "You know what? I think Patty needs to be part of this," and you invited me, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And I think that's. But I think that's the important thing about good conversations, is that you have to be open to it. You have to be able to open your heart enough to say, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And that was safe. because it was offline. So I think if you had invited me and said, we have this thing we live stream, I'm like, nope, that wouldn't be me. So, but I think what makes it really, really valuable is that Roy didn't say to 3 people who were just like him, I think we should talk. You know, there was there are such vast differences among us in terms of how we approach things. Simone, what does it take to be able to take those vast differences and turn it into a unique conversation?
Wow. Yeah, you're right, Greg. She always asks the tough questions. Damn it.
Right?
I think in the very first instance, curiosity, you know, actually wanting to know something about someone. And I think this is the difference between small talk versus the raw talk. And we all start at some point, we've all started with small talk with someone, you know, unless we grew up with them or, you know, best mates at school or whatever. And it all started with, okay, so, you know, where do you live and what is it you like to do? And you're kind of searching for something that you have in common. So I think that that's the first thing, is that sense of, oh, okay, I found someone that has something in common with me. But the other thing, the curiosity, what's interesting, what fascinates me about this person? What is that uniqueness that I sort of go, wow, that's cool. That's what I like to find first, you know, and then it's like, well, tell me more about that. So I might be interested in it, but I don't necessarily know a lot about it. Or even if I do know something about it, it's the curiosity of, well, what's there? Where do they come from in that context?
I like that there's because you start very surface, and of course it's something that brought us together was a common understanding of an industry, right?
Yeah.
So it stayed at 30,000 feet for a little while when we were
Yeah.
talking about what we were noticing, what's happening in the industry, those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going to launch into my life's deep, dark secrets like in the first meeting.
Yeah, don't do that when you first get into a conversation.
Yeah,
you don't discuss the meaning of life and how we derive here as humans.
Yeah, you know, it takes a lot more margaritas than that.
Right. That's what I'm doing wrong. Got it.
Greg, I think that one of the things that I've really loved about our conversations is the humor and the laughter. So it takes a certain amount of vulnerability to let down the guard in order to allow the humor and laughter to come through. And Greg, you love to insert sarcasm and humor and laughter.
What?
But there's more to it. When we went online, there's something you used to say quite frequently is, this is a great conversation. How does it apply to the rest of the people that we know? Like what's common? I think that value add, how do you think that played out over time?
Yeah, I knew there was a question in there somewhere. I think that, so I wrote down curiosity because I share that view that to be a good conversationalist, to be a good human being, I think, yeah, maybe that's a little unfair, but I really think that if you're not genuinely interested in other people, if you're not curious about them, I don't know how you benefit from you know, those of you that at home that are tuning in live can't see that off camera I'm being heckled by my own peers and colleagues and friends. If you're not genuinely interested in people, I don't know how you can benefit from having a personal conversation. And I think that's part of it. To me, professionally and just personally, I'm eternally fascinated by learning about somebody else's life or profession or what they do, So as an IT professional, I love to go to my colleagues or peers or, others out there and just say, so tell me what, as an accountant, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean you sit here and like look at spreadsheets all day? I mean, what does that mean? And then you open yourself up for actually finding something out. And then you usually find out something like, and I don't know why I'm going to pick on CPAs today, so sorry about that, but you find out that numbers don't have the same meaning to them, that the relationship with numbers and math and whatnot is more, the stereotype is that accountants don't like people. They just, put them in front of a computer and close their door. And what I found out from just asking lots of questions is it's just the opposite. It's how they perceive people, and it's how they interact with people, and how they fund and support and work with other people. And I just find it eternally interesting to be in conversation with people where I learned something that I didn't know. I find that
my uncle resembles that remark, by the way.
But in terms of making it real for our audience, it's like blah blah blah, a lot of talking, blah blah, a lot of words, blah blah, everybody's got a podcast, blah blah, everybody's selling a book, and blah blah. And it's like, is it helping anybody? Is it beneficial? Is it valuable? And I have this strong sense that if we're going to have a conversation and open up to the people, why would they want to listen? What would they walk away from? I get a lot out of having a conversation, but is somebody going to get a lot out of listening to me? Even like right now, as I'm speaking, is this valuable to somebody? And I think that's an important thing that we need to be mindful of. And I'm going to let somebody else answer this question that I'd love to know a better answer to, but how do you be mindful of in an interaction with somebody else? What are those cues to, I don't think this is helping them. I don't think this is beneficial. Let me change course here, or let me move in a different direction.
So I think that the value add is that we don't all just have one mindset. In my way of thinking, we approach things differently. Roy, you pulled this together.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Is this together? Let's start with that question. Well, yes and no. I mean, I thought we were talking about complementary skills and so forth. I had a recent conversation with my friend Greg Gregory, who's Teams Rock is his business, and he does a lot of coaching and education in the space of helping people to understand teams and how they work. And he told me about this one exercise that he does where he predicts the outcome. He takes a number and puts it on a piece of paper, seals it in an envelope, and then divides people into teams, each one with a number. And they play a little game. And then at the end, he opens up the envelope. And of course, he already has the winning team. People say, well, how did you know which team won? So, well, you are all one type of person. You're all one type of person. You're all one type of person. You're all one type of person. This team is made up of different types of people, and it wins every single time. Because they come up with different ways to approach the problem they're trying to solve and have different input, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's really key to this group, with the exception of Greg and I, because Greg and I, as we have, we were introduced to each other by our friend Andy Kiss. And as we go along, we just keep discovering, wait a minute, you race go-karts as a kid? Yeah, I race go-karts. Wait, you play guitar? Yes, I play guitar. So we're kind of, he's my younger clone, essentially. And I feel sorry about that. We both have a tendency to use humor in the same way, although he is much more expert at sarcasm than am I. We both use it, I think more so in my case, use humor as defense mechanism. All right. Remember what I said before? The personal is tough for me. Well, guess what? When you hit that wall, what happens? I get funny because it's my defense mechanism. It's my shield. And but we each have our unique strengths. You and Simone are very alike in some ways. You're both painters. You're both creative, and so I mean we bring a lot of different talents and aspects to this conversation. And even though it centers around professional stuff and leadership stuff and that kind of thing, we all have very different ideas and different emotional approaches to life in general and this conversation.
Yeah, I like how that's brought together. There is a piece of growth, and we have a couple of people who've joined us today, and I might tap into them for a couple of moments. But you've been a long part of our journey, and you've seen us grow, I think. And I'm going to admit this. I'll be the first person to admit that no one's getting tenure for the first 20 episodes. We really were feeling our way through, and we've been growing together. Dee, how have you experienced what's going on with the group and your experience in it?
It's been really fascinating watching the Core Four, Fantastic Four, and hearing about seemingly these adventures that you have and how you bonded over time and space. And I have a question about, first off, I'm a little jealous of the closeness of you all, but I know that takes time. I'm wondering how have these sessions changed since you went live? Do you find yourself acting or communicating differently, or does it feel the same as it did before you were live?
Have to watch our P's and Q's now.
That's
It's recorded.
Simone has to watch her mouth. That's really the only thing. Other than that, we're all the same.
So other than that, it's the same.
No, I'm more serious, Patty. If you'll allow me to jump in here, I do think that, you know, when it's just us talking, sometimes it was more getting to know each other and kind of supporting each other through the challenges. When we turn the cameras on and start rolling, I think we do need to think in terms of why would anybody want to listen. So I do think there's some of that, but it's not unlike, this is unrehearsed material because we're raw today, but it's not unlike for me as I've been attempting to be a writer for quite a long time. And it's like I'm going to have to credit Twitter with really increasing my writing skills, which is just a bizarre sort of thing. Why? Because if you can't say it in a few short words, then either you don't have the right relationship with it or you haven't fully thought it out yet. And so that economy of words, or that what would somebody care about, becomes, it just becomes ingrained in your psyche. And I think that's part of what has helped KTLO become something of value to folks.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow up because I noticed when you all said that before about, are we of value to people? And any business person struggles with that. Do I pursue what I feel passionate about, or do I serve the market and create what people want? So where is that balance? And I think if you all continue to be as genuine as you are, then there will be nuggets in there that people are attracted to and draw from, and you don't know what they're going to be. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think we've made a big concerted effort to talk about conversations that matter. You know, how is this relevant? Who's, and we talk a lot about things that don't matter at all, but we keep that offline because
we try to.
Some of it we talk, but it's about being human.
Yes.
So if it's will it be valuable in the marketplace? That has never been a question that has been part on our mind, because it's how are we adding value, not how can we monetize this. This isn't about that. It's about us caring about people.
Yeah. Because if anyone knows how to monetize it, let me know, because I have no idea.
I think, Dee, for me, the biggest change I noticed by having these conversations public is, we have this debrief afterwards. Because taking them public, we did want to make sure that it made a difference. That's a big thing for me. If I'm going to be passionate about a topic, and which we are on or offline, we are still very passionate about what we talk about. But we always tend to debrief afterwards as well and talk to each other about where we also talked to each other about how we felt during that conversation, whether we felt that we had the opportunity with each other to share during that time, what we wanted to, how did we feel that day about the dynamics. And this is what I think leaders forget about sometimes their teams. You're not the same team every day. Sometimes there's other things that are happening externally for us as well that shifts the dynamic sometimes, even though it's still just our core. So I think that's actually a really interesting thing, taking it online, is having the opportunity to, and I think it's actually really helping us craft ourselves even better and really helping us hone our skills with each other in a relationship, just as much as it's helping hone our skills in our topics of where we're passionate.
I think that's absolutely true. And the debriefs are valuable to that. I think a conversation has some foundational pieces that make a difference. Roy, do you want to talk to some of the foundational pieces about a really great conversation? What's the first thing you have to do?
Well, the first thing you have to do, Patty, is be natural. Just be yourself when you're out there. Yeah, don't do that. Okay. I think that as we discussed a little bit earlier, being interested in the other person is really important. I am always struck by the fact that people have so much in common, and yet they're so different from each other. When you get them talking, it's fascinating to hear what comes out. So maintain your interest in what's being said. I'm not the best listener in the world, but I try to pay attention. I've during my life I've been so poor I couldn't pay attention, but uh, it's a fascinating world. Don't forget it. Don't forget that fact. That we have a tendency to get used to things after a while, and we're not paying that much attention. Pay attention. It's amazing what you'll hear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roy, you said it's an amazing world. I think it's an amazing world in part because people are amazing. And I think one of the things that I think is important to that is when you start dehumanizing people and putting them in boxes based on some little tidbit about them. Oh, you're one of them. Oh, so I don't need to listen to you. Oh, I don't respect you because you whatever. I think you kind of lose some of that wonder about how fascinating people and conversations can be. So I think if we maintain our curiosity and our authenticity, I think it's amazing. It's amazing what you learn when you're in dialogue with people.
Yeah. Kathy, how have you viewed the journey? You joined us early on.
Well, I joined you from almost the first episode in season 1. And exactly what you're talking about is what drew me to this group. I could see that you genuinely cared about each other and about what you were, the topic du jour. And that you cared about the information you were delivering. And that really drew me in. And as I've said before, I mean, when I have a new team, we are going to watch an episode and then have that after conversation, just like you guys have and that I've been privileged to. But it really was that sincerity and that group dynamic that I was so drawn to. And then to be part of an after call chat is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I was, because everybody knows, I write down a couple notes here. But people need it and I need it. And that is so true, because one of the basic elements of humans is a need to belong, that sense of belonging, whether people admit it or not. That is one of the core things at human beings versus, other animals. And you guys demonstrated that, and demonstrated it in a way that was open. And so when I had the opportunity to actually join live, I have to say, and I've said it to you guys, you're all people that I look up to. You have done remarkable things in your careers, and that I could be part of that and learn from all of you was incredible. And then as Dee joined, and I got, prop to Dee here, my little book that I'm reading that is incredible, because it is so true. 28 Ways of Compassion. That's what you guys are talking about.
Thank
And-
you.
I think at this moment, since Kathy did, I need to show that I have mine right next to me as well. And I think it's something that this crew has in abundance, and that's our compassion.
If you're going to plug the book, plug it proper. When was
Okay. So let me talk about the 28 Ways of Compassion by Dee Burgoyne. It's a very active book in which that you actually need to participate. And that is actually what our crew does too. We participate in what's going on.
Roy?
I think the word participate is inappropriate. I think it should be whole participate. Don't put part of you in the conversation, put all of you in the conversation.
I love it.
Be
I
present.
love that.
I love that too. Whole participate.
Can I add one thing to that, which is the fact that the whole participate is all of you, you show up and you are present. And when you are in this hour, you are wholly in this hour, fully invested in it.
So Kathy, you to make a plug to your future work group that, about how awesome you are and everything? I'll do it.
Well, I think what's happening here is this is a demonstration of exactly what we want to happen within our own organizations and with our own leaders and our own teams, is that level of our whole selves being there. And, you don't just shut your emotions off at the door. When you walk in that door, well, okay, whether it's the bedroom door into the dining room now for your office or whatever it might be, but when you walk through that portal, that you don't just magically leave those things behind. All that stuff's still within you. And when you are fully encompassed by your teammates, your colleagues, your manager, that for me is where the magic happens.
Greg?
Simone, you said, you don't leave yourself at the door, your emotions, your feelings, your whole person at the door. And I think I want to add to that. It's like, that's not a statement of intent, like as in you should not do that. You should choose not to do that. But it's a statement of reality. It's impossible for human beings to leave something at the door. And so in work environments where authenticity is not encouraged, where it's like, buck it up, buttercup, but we got work to do here. It's like, that's fine, in quotes, quote unquote. But the reality is people are human beings. And as leaders in this modern era, to treat humans like resources or assets or machines that just are here to do a job and, do your job, get your pay, go home and have a life somewhere else other than here, it's not realistic. And organizations that employ that kind of leadership are going to find themselves very much struggling for the kind of resources, the kind of human beings that they need to be successful in the marketplace. And I think that's really important.
I'm going to throw out a challenge to the leaders out there. Dare to care.
Yes.
I love Dare to Care. Great challenge, because and these kinds of things don't happen by magic. They evolve. So there's an evolution to a conversation, to friendships, to connection, to team unitedness. It starts out where, okay, let's ask some good questions and let's bring our different, unique, complementary skills to the table. But it's a growth continuum. And even in our episodes, we've seen that. What are some questions, Roy, that we could ask others who are looking to try and figure out how to connect in a way that is meaningful to them?
Look for commonality. just talk and look for commonality in what comes out. That I think is something that happens. And, so you were talking about me being a connector, and I mentioned Andrea Kiss, our friend in the UK. And Andy saw something in Greg that she also said, and it was our sense of humor. She said, "You guys are going to get along great because your sense of humor is very similar." And then I met Greg and realized that he thinks he has a sense of humor, but in fact, uh, but look, there are common threads. I have friends who politically think in a diametrically opposed way to me, and I don't talk politics in public. It's just how I am. But I know for a fact that they think very differently from the way I do. That's okay. I have friends who are extremely religious, who are or not. That's okay. We are humans, and we are joined at the genetic level, and uh, we need to find little bits of commonality. And for goodness sake, start concentrating on what unites you with the people around you, as opposed to what separates you from the people around you. And you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at what you find. That people have tremendous amounts in common. So look for those threads. That's the first thing, and then and then celebrate the differences. Because as I said before, talking about Greg Gregory's team structures, you have to be different from each other to make things happen too. There has to be a little chemistry, right? If you just pour water in the vessels, nothing happens. If you pour sulfuric acid and a few other things in the vessel, something happens. Why? Because they're different in nature from each other, and you're going to have a chemical reaction. That's how people work too.
Which am I? I'm sorry, which?
You're definitely the acid dude.
Got it.
Well, I think what drew me originally to the group was obviously kindness. So that was the very first one. I recognized the kindness in the hearts, and I think that was the first common thing. The humor and the kindness are the two first things, and then we were kindred spirits. We all kind of had a similar mindset, but the mindset was only in one area that I was aware of, and that was how we serve others in the workplace and what that looks like in the industry. And we began talking about really human things. And that leads to something that Simone talks about a lot, is holding space for others. And I think that's something that occurred in our private calls that enabled us to go online as that really close united front was the holding space. Simone, tell us a little bit more about holding space for others.
Yeah, I think this is, we've talked about psychological space before on other episodes and what that might mean in team environments and so on. But I think that the human side of it is a very deep part of leadership competency that we don't always see or is still evolving. I think there are more leaders now starting to become more aware of that now that they actually can't even be face to face and in the same physical space, that they're now having to start to hold the space, dare I use the term, more energetically. So they're now having to tap into something a little bit deeper than just having, a nice physical environment to be sitting in, the color of the wall and the way things are and so on and so forth. So I think holding space very much is about holding the energetic space of what's happening in the dynamic in the team. And Roy's playing with the space here. We've actually got this energy ball going on. And the thing between with raw conversations and being unrehearsed is that they are naturally occurring and organic. And so someone that's holding the right space or creating that environment, I think the real key to that is allowing each person to happen naturally in that conversation and supporting the journey of the people that are having the conversations. It doesn't mean that every time you have a raw talk, it doesn't mean you have to be equally personal within every interaction. I think that's the mistake. Some people think that, oh, we've got to have a deep and meaningful each time that we want a raw conversation. It just means that we're creating a space where that interaction is intentional, that we are, we have this space where you can allow yourself at whatever pace or level that you want to contribute into that interaction, and that it just can be as authentic as possible. You want people to be able to feel at peace around them in a way. You want them, regardless of what the conflicts are going on, you want people to allow themselves to be themselves and just to be open about what they think and feel in that moment without the judgment. That's the really tricky part, is without the judgment.
I think Kathy probably has some good ideas on holding space and what that means.
Yeah. And I think, I'm just thinking of when I entered my last organization and coming in as the new leader, and people kind of want to tell you things and make sure you know things. And I think it's important as leaders to, I hate to say set the ground rules, but to have, when you come to the realization that you want to be a leader of this type, you have to communicate to your team what those ground rules are. We come together with no judgment. We are here for a fresh start. Let's be who we want to be from today going forward.
Yes.
And I also had one of my managers who people thought he was almost disrespectful because he would ask why, or he would say, I disagree. And he would say why he disagreed. And I valued that so much that he felt comfortable enough with me and with the team to say it in a very respectful, caring manner. But it got us thinking, because he's thinking differently. And if we didn't respect his individuality, we would have missed out on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really key piece to it, is somebody feeling good about having the opportunity, the environment to be able to challenge what they're hearing. And those are some of the valuable people in our teams. But as leaders, we have to set the stage for that. Dee, what do you think about what we've been talking about in terms of safe spaces and holding
space? A few things. I think it's really important, like you said, to create that space. And the way that you do that is by being inviting and non-judgmental and open-armed. And then, as Kathy was talking about, and I was thinking about a little bit back, as a team forms and grows and moves, there are going to be disagreements and conflicts. And sometimes that's where teams get stuck because they don't know how to disagree professionally or nicely. And they feel somehow that a conflict is a bad thing. And a conflict is not a bad thing. It's a growth thing. And it's a huge, being able to handle conflict constructively and grow through it is one of the biggest signs of emotional intelligence that employers and businesses and organizations need to be looking for. It's not the college degree that's going to win the day in the current and going forward environment. The emotional intelligence and the ability of people to communicate and connect is going to be what moves us forward more than anything. And the thing that we have in common from the very get-go is being human. I was thinking, looking at all my animals outside, thinking, to them, we all look alike.
I love that.
They're going, oh, they're the humans. And that's our very basic thing in common. We are humans being, and that's our core commonality.
Yeah.
So I have all those thoughts, and I just love this conversation. Greg,
I'm going to let you pipe in here.
Oh, you're going to let me? Okay, good. I can butt in then. If you've ever been in a social situation, in a conversation, and you felt comfortable, it's because somebody made room for you. is because the group collectively decided that we're going to allow you space to be you and to make a contribution. And I think that's really important, because we know what it feels like to have space for ourselves, and we may not recognize that somebody did that with some level of intentionality. And so we may not, Dee, you mentioned offline about emotional intelligence, I think, about, being mindful of, am I creating space for other people? Am I making other people feel comfortable to sit here, to contribute, to bring their ideas to the table? And Kathy, I gotta call you out on, it takes a strong leader to be able to openly and authentically say, allow somebody to disagree with you. I love that. I know who my friends are. I know who my allies are. When somebody says, I totally disagree with you here, and here's why, I covet that. I totally thrive on that. But it takes a very strong leader. Many leaders would simply shut that down, view that as insubordination, that as a bad example to the rest of the team. You need to stop that behavior, not on my watch, kind of thing. And so thank you for being for modeling a new level of leadership for your teams and for your organizations that you contribute to. But I just think it's so important to be mindful of where we fit in the conversation, because we know where we feel, but sometimes we don't know how much permission or energy we allow somebody else that contributes to the value of the conversation.
I love that. I'm hearing some threads here. It's like leadership maturity is foundational in EI, right? Emotional intelligence. There's leadership maturity means that you're not coming out defensive. But there are some other things that, I was looking this up in conversations and what makes a good conversation. They say, listen, be present, embrace silence. I'm not good at that, but I try. Take genuine interest, ask better questions, deepen the conversation. How? What do you mean? What does that involve? And then read wildly, like read things that are not within your thought process, because that's how you learn how to have a better conversation. Discuss, don't debate. We discuss a lot in this group, and I mean passionately sometimes, especially in those off times. And then cultivate a diverse circle. And I think we talk about that a lot. And throwing some excitement in it and commitment. Mm-hmm. And so the commitment and the excitement are pieces. Maybe we could talk a little bit about behavior awareness, Simone.
Yeah, there's something as you were talking about that. This is the beauty of raw conversations, isn't it? Not being rehearsed. There are things that just fire off in your brain. You kind of go, oh, yeah, that reminds me of that. And something, Roy, that you said earlier, a lot of us have a sense of humor is certainly been one of my covers, when I felt awkward in a situation, or maybe feeling a bit inadequate, or just kind of not sure of myself in that space, not quite sure where I fit. I guess one way, a sense of humor, making someone laugh, it puts them at ease. But other behaviors also show themselves. And things like, and Patty, when you said, embracing silence, that's really difficult, especially in a raw environment or having a raw conversation, because that's quite confronting. Small talk covers the silence. Small talk is not the raw conversation. And I know I'm guilty of this myself, and I still do it sometimes. But I think as leaders and managers and team colleagues, we need to be aware of the behaviors that are covering those symptoms, I guess, or those emotions, because they are a physical demonstration of what the person is experiencing at that time in the conversation. And I know I overtalk, or I will talk at rapid speed, or whatever it takes to fill that silence, because you don't quite know where else to go with this, and you feel a bit exposed, or you're feeling awkward. So I think behavioral awareness, they're just a couple of little things. Behavioral awareness could be a whole nother episode, but I think those are the sorts of things that were popping into my head as you were talking, that we need to be aware of those things.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like situational awareness with the emotional side. So, Greg, we've talked about that a lot in some of our offline calls too.
We sure have. It's a challenge. So when you've heard my story before, many of you have, that after many years of being in an IT operations role, I moved into a senior role and a CIO role. And one of the things that I became quickly aware of, the skills that got you here, everybody says this, I think you can even buy a book on this, are not the skills that are going to keep you here or make you successful in here. And one of the things that I learned was it's all about people, and it's all about people at a emotional, raw, authentic level. And, to move organizations, to drive transformational change within an organization, it's not about, let's select the right technology and get the right processes in place. It's about people. And so that's why we've talked about this. And one of the things that I learned, when you sit in the corner office, people show up to your door, either literally or figuratively in different states of mind. And I became very mindful of where they were at and how I could help them get what they need. I had people that show up at the door clearly wanting to say something, but they couldn't get to that. Like I had a gentleman that was literally shaking, and I asked him to sit down, and he sits down and he hops back up, as an example. And so one of the things that I kind of taught myself or thought about myself is, how can I help you get what you need? How can I help you get to where you need to go? And so what I did was I created a set of what I now call ramp in small talk. Like, let me help you start this conversation. Like, there'd be people and having a guitar on the wall is part of that. For a while, I had a guitar in my office. Why? Because I wanted everyone to know I play guitar and play it badly, I might add. No, but because for some people, I would say, dude, how's that Les Paul coming? And they would like, oh, you have no idea. It sounds so great. And pretty soon they were ready to talk about what they came to my office for. And other people, it was gardening or traveling, or there's just so many topics. And so I think, Simone, the idea of small talk leading into the depthiness, I think there's a way we can help folks, because nobody, I think we said at the beginning of the show, nobody starts out with, hi, good to know you. So what's your take on the meaning of life, liberty, and pursuit of everything, right? It's like, nobody starts that way. It's just not the way we work. And so I think that's important, is allow people the space to get to where they need to be so that they can contribute to the conversation. You've probably all seen the leader that has an intimidated person in a meeting, and it's like, hey, John, what's your take? And it's like, well, you must not have anything important to say. Next person. It's like, wow, talk about creating safe space, right?
I received a text from a friend who said someone came to apologize to them for what they had done. He was a leader, and she said it felt like an accusation, not an apology. And I think that's everything I'm hearing from all of you today is, when we make it about ourselves, we lose something. We put up a fence. And when I love how you articulated that, Greg, about making it about someone else and understanding them and being there. So how does a leader reach out? What do we do to open that door? Roy, do you have any thoughts on that?
I used to, the way I did it, I mean, I'm a firm believer in the whole, the Gemba walk, the management by walking around, that type of thing. And I did it every single day, usually twice, usually once in the morning and then once in the evening. I would back in the days when we were in physical offices, I'd just walk down the hall and walk down the next hall and walk down the next hall, peek in to see how people were doing. In the afternoons, I had a little coffee can with a lid on it in which I kept bits of chocolate, and I would just walk around with the can. I knew who liked chocolate and who didn't, and I would just go in and put a piece of chocolate on their desk. Even if they weren't there, there'd be a Hershey's Kiss or a little whatever on their desk. It wasn't bribing them. It was just allowing the contact and say, what's going on? That's that's an easy starter for a conversation. What's going on? What are you worried about today? What's holding you back today? What do you wish you could get done today and you can't? Why couldn't you get that to happen? Just ask those questions. So, we talked about that earlier too. Ask the question.
I love that. Kathy, tell me some stories about inclusion and how you reach out, how you open the door.
One thing, especially when you come in as a new leader and people don't know you, and new leaders can be intimidating. I want to make a good impression, all that kind of stuff. I'll tag on to Roy's thing first. Silly little things like that go a long way. I put a note in our little chat thing that said, put a pack of extra gum with a note that says, thanks for going the extra mile. And I had cornier ones than that I won't even, like Pop Rocks. Hey, you rock. Silly things. I was known for when the team was having a really low energy day, and we have to be able to feel that energy because we had a lot of issues. Maybe Microsoft came out with a release that impacted our, we got flooded with calls or something like that. And I would, of course, make sure there's no customer conversations that could hear it. And I had a little portable speaker that connected to my phone, and I'd put up some, that song, Celebrate Good Times, Come On, that we're getting through it. One time in a meeting, we had a massive breakthrough, and I literally jumped up out of my chair and said, that's fantastic. But that kind of energy, whether we have that positive energy that the team feeds on to get through those tough times, shows we care. It's a different way of showing we're caring. It's a different way of being insanely vulnerable. But it also, if you flip that side and you set the energy of don't come into me when you're having a problem, that I just stay in my office, that I don't do, I call them walkabouts, that I don't do the walkabouts, just be that distant person, you're not going to get, we as leaders are going to lose out on so much of what our team has to offer.
Absolutely. Very beautifully said. I love that. There is, we had a system go down. It was 2 days before the factory floor was going to be seeing, and it was a large system, before the factory floor was going to be seeing the client come for factory acceptance testing. 2 days. It was a horrible, horrible weekend. It happened at 4 o'clock on a Friday because all IT breaks down at 4 o'clock on Friday. And we didn't know what to do, but we knew we had to do something. We knew we'd be working the whole weekend. And I sat down and I crafted a letter, and it was like it was a doctor. And I just crafted the letter about an emergency situation with the patient in crisis. And then my project manager went out and got caution tape. We put it all the way around. The factory. We literally put down, somebody laid down and we ran around them with chalk, the chalk outline, the whole bit. And we sent it out to the team saying, who's with us this weekend? And they came, and we ate junk food and pizza and wore the same clothes. We were wearing the same clothes on Monday morning that we had on Friday. But it's the humor, right? It's what we bring to it that allows people to be invited in. And I think the gift that we have found at KTLO is first, yes, we started by asking great questions. Then we understood that we could celebrate the differences that we bring to the table. We've gone through this growth of, all speaking over each other to learning how to really, truly understand how the conversation is valuable to external people, but also to ourselves by approaching things in different ways. But we were open to each other to tell each other how we felt about that and what was going on. And then we've learned a ton. We've learned about authenticity and vulnerability and being goofy and laughing with each other, which opened the door to something I never expected when we first started, was that I would consider my KTLO friends the people that they're my first go-to. You know, I did something yesterday that I was excited about, first go-to, right? And but the gift for us is that we did this because we felt strongly about the value we were adding to ourselves and our learning experience, not necessarily, and hopefully, you know, that was a similar journey other people were going on. But the gift to us was the inclusion, and not that we are being inclusionary. It's that the world has invited us to participate with them. So Dee and Kathy, that's you, that's other people who have commented, other people who have joined us, other people who have entered into conversation or commented or liked or been a part of that. That's been an immense gift for 4 people who started Cheeky Conversations, right? And the path we have taken in the learning we do and the mapping we do with our emotions and what have you. So just the learning experience, I think, in conversations that I'd like to leave everybody with is it never starts like a united front. It always starts a little awkward and you grow into that. And I think that's the same for teams. I think that's the same for any relationship. But the most important part of it is committing to it. Truly committing. Roy?
Speaking of being committed, someone who probably should be, hi, I will wrap up the conversation just by thanking everybody who's on the call today. Thank you, Kathy and Dee, and you other people, whoever you are, that are here every week. I show up and turn my camera on, and there you are, back again. And for whoever's out there in YouTube land, thanks for tuning